was it Nella, that shared a recipe for this borscht, and we thought, why would we want to hear a recipe from the River Cafe
when you can hear it straight from the front lines?
From the front line.
So we went to Zaporizhia. This was, I think, in 2022. And
where is that?
Zaporizhia is just past Dnipro. It's sort of in the east of Ukraine, not quite the front line, although the Zaporizhia nuclear plant is obviously Russian held. So it's very near the front line in Ukraine. And at this point, they were getting all the refugees from Mariupol, whoever was able to escape. They were driving to Zaporizhia first. So we went to Zaporizhia to find those people and hear their stories. And our fixer, who's from Kyiv, had a contact in Zaporizhia named Nella. And she met us in her like little Lada car, and from the beginning she was feeding us. Like, we showed up on arrival, and she had made these mashed potato donuts that morning and kept them in her car in a rag.
What were they like?
They looked almost like a knish, a little fried dumpling, and inside was this warm, spiced mashed potato mixture. And she met us and immediately handed these out, and so we stood in the cold eating her potato dumplings. And then when we went back for a second day, we shot in the morning, and then she said, okay, that's it, you're coming to my house for soup. And we go into her apartment building, which is a classic Soviet style. It looks incredibly decrepit from the outside, but when you're in her flat, it's warm. She had 5 cats wandering around, and she just shoved all 6 of us around her tiny glass kitchen table and ladled out a borscht that she'd been cooking since the morning. So that is a recipe on the blog.
Going to a home tells you so much.
It's everything.
Doesn't it? It is just going. I always say that when somebody said, what is the best restaurant in London, I'd say home.
Yeah.
If you go to someone's home.
Or your house, exactly.
My house, but it's anyone's home. I think that there is something. We were once in Prague. Richard, my husband, got an honorary degree from the University of Prague, and we were walking down the street, and a woman came up and said, I was at your ceremony yesterday, and it was so moving, and I loved your architecture. And she said, would you ever think of coming to my home for lunch? And we said, yes, immediately. And the next day we found ourselves in this little home in Prague with a kind of family silver. It was very, that had been handed down, and tablecloths that had been ironed for hours, it seemed, with embroidery. And we had this meal that she'd cooked, and her children were there. I remember it more than probably any restaurant I've ever been to.
Absolutely. To get that kind of closed-door experience it's really unique.
Yeah, and the generosity, as you say, and the trust.
Yeah.
Actually, the trust to say, I'm going to take strangers into my home and feed them is
beautiful.
massive. So, and to have it compounded by being in a war zone. So this is called Nella's Famous Borscht.
Yes.
And I was wondering whether you would read the recipe.
Absolutely.
It's the first recipe that we've ever had that didn't have the ingredients in a list.
She wouldn't give us any measurements.
Any measurements.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. Okay.
She also cautions that it doesn't have giant chunks of meat, because that's not the kind of borscht she makes. But I suppose you could pull the meat off the meat that's simmering in here and keep them.
But it's interesting because my father, as a big event in our lives, would drive us to New York to see theater when we were kids from upstate New York, and we'd go to the Russian tea room as a treat. And the borscht was always very red, very smooth, and not much, texture in my memory. And then the sour cream. But this one is quite a meaty potato.
Ukrainian borscht is very different. It's closer to like a goulash.
Yeah,
it's
that's
more
what
like
I thought.
a stew.
Yeah.
And the Ukrainians, I've met the chef Yevgen Klopotenko, who's lobbied the UN and UNESCO to name Ukrainian borscht as a heritage product. So they take it very seriously.
Okay.
It's
all right. We're going to hear the
national
recipe
dish
for Ukrainian borscht.
So this is Nella's famous Ukrainian borscht. Simmer a large piece of either pork or beef in a large pot of water. Skim the fat, then add a whole onion and bay leaves. Simmer until you have a stock. Scrub and peel 2 potatoes, 2 carrots, and 2 beets. Add them to the boiling stove. After the vegetables are softened, remove and let the stock continue to simmer. Cube the potatoes, carrots, beets, and onions, adding tomato juice to the pan. Remove the meat from the stock and add vegetables. While they simmer, add sliced green cabbage and dill to the pot. Boil for 10 minutes. It's then ready to serve with sour cream, or you can let the flavors meld and eat it the next day. Simple.
Delicious, simple.
Sounds simple.
But how, I mean, yeah.
But I think my borscht would probably not equal Nella's.
So you've only worked for CBS, and CBS sent you to London.
So I moved to London in 2014. My first story once I moved here was the revolution in Ukraine, the Maidan. And my boss came to me and said, look, we haven't covered Ukraine in 30 years. Nobody in this office has ever been. We don't really have any contacts, but the story's yours if you want to go. And so I went, and it was an amazing time. I mean, we'd go out to the square every day. And I mean, the Ukrainians are so sort of creative in how they manage these things. The guys would be kitted out in sort of mattresses as a shield, and little colanders as helmets, and they'd be out there sort of throwing bricks against the government police. And there would be little old grandmothers pushing around carts. I've never seen anything like them. They looked like mini trains, and they were sort of soup tureens that were kept hot with wood, I think, and they just pushed them around, and they were dishing out soup, and the others would be wandering around with hard-boiled eggs, and it's just kind of amazing.
Do you remember the soup, what it was?
Yeah, it was borscht.
It was borscht.
Yeah.
And what was that revolution? I'm sorry to be ignorant, but
sure, they had a pro-Russian president at the time, Yanukovych, and he was moving closer to Russia and away from the EU, and so they were protesting that. And in the end, he fled, and the protesters sort of quote unquote won.
Right.
And that was that, and that was the start of sort of everything we've seen since then.
And that was your first kind of intervention, your first experience.
That was my first.
How big was the crew?
It's usually.
Do you try and take a small?
It's usually 4 of us. It's usually producer, correspondent, cameraman, and security advisor if it's a dangerous place. And then once we're on the ground, we pick up a local fixer translator who helps us get around. From there, I went to Crimea and then Eastern Ukraine, because at this point Russia was invading in the east. And so I've been covering Ukraine for 12 years.
Is that Ukraine been your focus?
Yeah, Ukraine. Well, the Ukraine and the Middle East generally. But that is also when I started the food blog, because I thought there's some interesting things happening out here.
What else did you eat in Ukraine? Do you remember, other than the borscht?
There's a lot of really sort of hearty, bone-sticking food, which is perfect when you're fighting a war in winter. So there's kasha, which is a sort of buckwheat. I know
kasha. My grandmother made kasha. Yeah, that we used to have. Yeah.
So there's a lot of kasha around. Yeah. The mountainous regions make something called banosh, it's like a polenta. It's cornmeal, and then they mix it with cheese, and they top it with mushrooms or sort of bacon. It's really, you eat it, and after six or seven bites, you can't eat anymore because it's just expanding inside you. And then, if you get sort of toward the front lines and you're with the soldiers who are cooking, there's a lot of boiled eggs. There's a lot of stews, soups on the stove.
How do they get the food to the front line?
They have an amazing logistics.
Is Ukraine thing. Particularly strong
they're very nimble, and they pivot very quickly. So they've been very good at keeping the logistics running. There was one trip we made close to the front line, and it sort of set back a little bit, and they had a proper food set up there where they were bringing in sort of volunteer chefs. This guy, a Ukrainian guy, had come in. He was a head chef in Sweden somewhere, and he had flown back to volunteer his services after the invasion, and was just there again making borscht.
Do you know Jose Andres?
Yes.
Did you ever meet him?
I haven't.
Yeah. Because
he's amazing.
He is amazing. He's my hero, and
World Central Kitchen is pretty special.
World Central Kitchen. They fly in,
and we run into their people in more places than any other charity out there. Actually, like you'll be really frontline-ish, and you'll see a guy in a World Central Kitchen T-shirt. It's amazing, actually. They really are.
And they do it in an incredible way, which he just goes. He doesn't bring a whole team with him, I think. And then the whole idea is that they
hire locals, and the locals source everything locally. So it's really, really,
Yeah.